You can feel it in the air. This is the kind of playoff moment every Niners fan lives for. The matchup that separates casual interest from full-on obsession. You're fired up because the Seahawks are on the other sideline, and right now there's real buzz that San Francisco might make a roster move that changes the dynamic of this series, a claim on a pass rusher who could give the defensive front some desperately needed teeth. I want you to lean in for a second because this opener isn't about hyperbole, it's about context. The Niners just eked out a huge win, and while the defense showed grit, you saw firsthand how rarely they were able to get to the quarterback. That's the hole you can't ignore going into Seattle. So before we dive into tape and analytics, do me one quick favor. If you're the type who hates the Seahawks and loves the Niners, hit that like button. I want to see this video blow up and show the league how loud Dub City gets. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing and hitting that bell. We're chasing a goal for this channel, and every new subscriber helps us hit that target of 1,000 supporters who want daily playoff coverage and instant roster updates. Now, back to the show. Here's why this possible roster move matters right now. You already know the core 49ers starters, but the playoffs are a different animal. Rotations tighten, schemes get more exotic, and games are decided by one or two impact snaps. Adding a rotational pass rusher isn't glamorous, but it's the sort of practical, high-upside move that wins games in January. Quick question for you. Yes or no? Should the Niners make a quick claim off waivers to add depth on the edge, or trust the guys already on the roster? Drop your vote in the comments right now. I'll read the best takes in the next video. I'm going to walk you through what to watch. Size, burst, snap versatility, special teams value, and why a player with the right profile could be more than just depth. He could be the matchup answer in a pivotal series. Stick with me because later I'll also spotlight the 3 unlikely heroes from the last game who gave this team life when it mattered most. Next up, we'll dig into the exact player name that's being discussed, his recent timeline, and why he might be a surprisingly good fit for San Francisco's front. When you start hearing buzz about a possible pass rusher addition, the name that jumps off the page is Daryl Taylor. And if you haven't followed his journey closely, this is where it gets interesting. Taylor just came off injured reserve, he's healthy, and he's hitting waivers at the exact moment when playoff teams are desperate for edge help. That timing alone should make you sit up in your chair, because that's how sneaky, high-upside playoff moves get made. He hasn't played much this season, and on the surface you might think, why even bother? But context matters. He was buried on a loaded Texans depth chart behind elite rushers, and that doesn't suddenly make him a bad football player. It means he was fighting for snaps in one of the deepest front sevens in the league. Now here's the part that really makes him intriguing for San Francisco. He's 6'4", about 267 pounds, which is exactly the body type the 49ers have historically preferred at defensive end. This team loves size on the edge, guys who can set the run, absorb contact, and still collapse the pocket. That's Taylor's build to a T. He's not some undersized speed rusher. He's a legit edge defender who can survive in a physical playoff environment. He was a second-round pick for a reason, and he didn't accidentally stumble into 9.5 sacks earlier in his career. Those numbers happened because he knows how to win with leverage, timing, and power. Now, let me ask you something directly. Would you rather see John Lynch take a low-risk swing on a player with proven sack production, or do you want him to roll the dice with what you've already watched struggle to get pressure? Type your answer in the comments because this is one of those front office moments that can quietly decide a postseason run. And while you're down there, make sure you're subscribed. Roster moves in January happen fast, and you don't want to be the last person to find out when something breaks. The other layer to Taylor that makes him fascinating is his experience in multiple 4-3 systems. That means the learning curve is much shorter. You're not asking him to reinvent his game. You're asking him to do what he's done before, attack the quarterback from the edge, play disciplined against the run, and rotate in for 15 to 25 high-energy snaps. That's all this team needs. You're not looking for a savior. You're looking for someone who can win one rep on third down, and if he does that once or twice in Seattle, that could flip an entire quarter. Up next, we're going to talk about why this need is so urgent right now, and how the Niners' pass rush problem nearly cost them everything. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, but it has to be said out loud if we're being honest about this team. The 49ers just pulled off a huge win, and the defense deserves credit for the grit and the discipline they showed. But if you watched that game closely, you saw something that should make you nervous heading into Seattle. They could not get to the quarterback. Jalen Hurts was pressured, but he was not consistently hit, and that's a dangerous way to live in the playoffs. You can survive it once. You cannot survive it 4 times in a row. That's why this idea of adding a rotational pass rusher isn't some luxury, it's a necessity. San Francisco finished near the bottom of the league in sacks this season, and that isn't just a stat you can ignore because the next opponent is rested, confident, and playing at home. Let me ask you something straight up. Do you trust this current pass rush to beat Seattle as it is right now? Yes or no? Be honest with yourself and drop it in the comments, because what we're talking about here isn't panic, it's preparation. When you go up against an offense you've already seen twice, the smallest matchup advantage can become everything. One extra edge rusher who can keep legs fresh in the fourth quarter can be the difference between a 3rd and long stop and a season-ending drive. This is also where depth becomes deadly. You don't need Daryl Taylor to be a superstar. You need him to give you 3 or 4 disruptive snaps when the starters are gassed. That's it. Those are the moments when quarterbacks start rushing throws, when protection breaks down, and when playoff games swing. If you want this front office to be aggressive instead of passive, hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm and the team that Niners fans want to go for it. And make sure you're subscribed, because if a claim happens, you're going to hear about it here first. Now, while we're talking about pressure and urgency, it's the perfect time to pivot into the other side of this story, because even with all the issues up front, this defense just got bailed out by 3 guys nobody expected to carry them. What makes that win over Philadelphia so special isn't just that the 49ers survived, it's how they survived. When so many of the usual names weren't making the splash plays, 3 guys stepped out of the shadows and kept this season alive, and that's the kind of story that defines playoff football. Start with Eric Kendricks. This is a player who wasn't even on the roster until late November, a veteran brought in quietly when the linebacker room was in trouble. Fast forward to that game and suddenly he's playing nearly every snap, flying around the field, breaking up passes and making tackles in space like he's been in this system for years. 10 tackles, no misses, 2 tackles for loss, and a game-sealing pass breakup. That's not just production, that's trust, and he earned it when it mattered most. Then you have Garrett Wallow, a name that most fans probably had to look up before kickoff. He was claimed off waivers, thrown into the lineup, and all he did was lead the team in tackles. 11 stops, a pass breakup, and a physical presence that the defense desperately needed. Think about that for a second. A player who wasn't even on the team earlier in the season just became one of the biggest reasons the Niners are still playing. Now let me ask you, which one of those 2 meant more to you watching that game, Kendricks or Wallow? Put it in the comments and tell me why, because I love seeing how you all view these moments. And then there's the quiet one, the guy who was almost forgotten, Maris Siegel. He started the year, got pushed to special teams, and suddenly was thrust back into a massive role when injuries hit. What did he do? He covered, he tackled, and he didn't crack. 7 solo tackles, strong coverage numbers, and 1 huge open field stop that could have easily turned into a big gain. These are the kinds of performances that don't always get headlines but win you playoff games. If stories like this are why you love football, hit that like button, because this team is built on guys stepping up when their number's called. And if you want more breakdowns like this all week, make sure you're subscribed as we push toward that 1,000 subscriber goal. Now, with all of that momentum and belief, we have to turn our eyes to Seattle because the Seahawks might not be as comfortable as the betting lines suggest. The funny thing about this Seahawks matchup is that on the surface, it looks like everything is stacked against San Francisco, but the deeper you look, the more dangerous the Niners actually become. Seattle got the bye, they're at home and they're favored, but they also have something that can quietly work against them, and that's familiarity. They've already seen this team, and now they have to play them again immediately. It is Never easy to beat the same opponent back-to-back, especially when that opponent just survived a pressure-packed playoff game and is riding a wave of belief. San Francisco's defense has taken a lot of criticism this season, but here's a stat that should jump out at you. In 2 games against Seattle, the Seahawks managed only 26 total points. That tells you this matchup isn't the mismatch people think it is. Now add in the fact that the Niners are walking in with a massive chip on their shoulder. After being sent across the country on a short week while Seattle was resting, and you have the perfect underdog recipe. Let me ask you directly before we wrap this up, do the 49ers win this game, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments because this fan base has been through too much not to be loud right now. If you believe in this team, hit that like button, and if you want wall-to-wall playoff coverage, roster news, and Seahawks breakdowns all week, make sure you're subscribed as we keep pushing toward that 1,000 subscriber goal. This run isn't over, and neither is our coverage.